B.Com फर्स्ट इयर ह्या वर्गाचा कम्प्युटर ॲप्लिकेशन आणि बिझनेस हा विषय पाहणार आहोत. या विषयाचा अभ्यासक्रम पाहणं हे आवश्यक आहे. कम्प्युटर ॲप्लिकेशन इन बिझनेस या विषयाची विभागणी ही 5 युनिटमध्ये केलेली आहे. या विषयासाठी एकूण 100 मार्क आहेत. त्यामध्ये थेरी 50 मार्क, प्रॅक्टिकल 50 मार्क. ह्या 5 युनिटमध्ये पहिलं युनिट आहे कम्प्युटर कोड अँड लँग्वेज. त्यामध्ये सोर्स कोड, बायनरी कोड, ओपी कोड, बाइट, ऑब्जेक्ट कोड, बीसीडी, ASCII लँग्वेज, ट्रान्सलेटर, कंपायलर, इंटरप्रिटर, हाय लेवल लँग्वेज, असेंबली लँग्वेज, डिफरंट नंबर सिस्टीम, बायनरी ऑक्टल, hexadecimal and conversion one base to another base. Then second unit word processing. Then third unit preparing the presentations. Then fourth unit spreadsheet and business applications. Then fifth unit creating business spreadsheet. Let us start this syllabus. First, what is language? Language is the main medium of communicating between computer system, and most common are the programming language. As we know, computer only understand binary language, that is 0 and 1, to perform various operations, but language are developed for different types of work. On computer, language consists of all instructions to make request to the system for processing task. From the first generation and now the fourth generation of the computer, there were the several programming language used to communicate with computers. Computer programming language allow us to give instructions to a computer in language. The computer understands just as many human-based languages exist. There is an array of computer programming language that programmers can use to communicate with the computer. Or the position of the language that computer can be understand and communicate with the computer, and the understanding is called a binary language. Then the next point, types of language. The two types of computer language. First, low level language, and then second, high level language. The low level language, a language that compounds directly to specific machine, and the high level language, any language that is independent of the machine. First, low level language. Low level language are the machine code. Low level language are the machine code in which instructions are given. A machine, a language in the form of 0 and 1 to a computer system. It is mainly designed to operate handle all hardware and instructions set the architecture of a computer. The main function of the low-level language is to operate, manage and manipulate the hardware and system components. There are the various programs and applications written in low-level languages that are directly execute without any interpretations or translation. Low-level language are either machine code or are very close to them. A computer cannot understand instructions given to a high-level language in our English, Hindi and Marathi. It can only understand and execute the instructions given in the form of machine language. For example, binary language. The most famous and base of all programming language that like C, C++, Java, Oracle are mostly used in low-level language. Till today, low-level language is also divided into two parts. There are the machine language and assembly language. First, on the machine language. A machine language is directly interpreted into a machine. Machine language is the most lowest and most elementary level of programming language. Was the first type of programming language is to be developed in machine language is basically the only language that a computer can understand, and it is usually written in. In fact, manufacturers design a computer to obey just one language. It's machine code, and which is represented inside the computer starting a binary digits called as 0 and 1. The symbol 0 stands for the absence of electric plus, and the 1 stands for the presence of electric plus. Since a computer capable of recognizing elements and electric signals, it is understand the machine language. Some advantages of machine language. The first advantage, a machine language makes fast and efficient use of computer. Then second, it requires a translator in translate the code. It is directly understood by the computer. And directly, then second, disadvantages of machine language. All operation codes have to be recommended. Then second, all memory addresses have to be recommended. And then the third, it is hard to or find errors in a program written in the machine language. The main advantages of using the machine language is that is no need of a translator or interpreter to translate the code, as the computer directly can understood. But there are some disadvantages also, like you have to remember the operation codes, memory addresses every time you return a program, and also hard to find the errors. A system program, it is a machine dependent and can be used by the signal type of computer. Then second type is assembly language. Assembly language was developed to overcome some of many inconvenience of machine language. This is another low level but very important language in which operation code and operations are given in the form of alphanumeric symbols instead of 0 and 1. These are the alphanumeric symbols known as the code and combine in a maximum of a few letter combinations. For example, add for addition, sub for subtraction, start, label, etc. Because of this is the feature of assembly language. Assembly language is also known as a symbolic programming language. This language also very difficult and needed a lot of practice to master it, because there is only a little English support in this language. Mostly assembly language is used to help in computer orientations. The instructions of the assembly language are converted to machine code by a language translator and they are executed by the computer. Then the assembly language is one level above machine language. It is used short codes for instructions and allow the programmer to introduce names. It is designed to be easily translated into the machine language. Then some advantage of assembly language. The first advantage is assembly language is easier to understand and use as compared to machine language. And then second advantage, it is too easy to locate and correct errors. Then third advantage, it is easily modified. Then some disadvantages of assembly language, and first disadvantages, like machine language, it is also machine. It is also machine dependent. It is also machine dependent specific. Since it is machine dependent, programmer also needed to understand hardware. The main disadvantages of this language is that it is written only for a single type of CPU and does not run or any other CPU. But speed makes it is the most used low level language till today, which is used by many programmers. There are some disadvantages and disadvantages. Then the third type is a high level language. The high level language are most used and also more considered programming languages that helps programmers to read, write and maintain. It is also the third generation language that is used and also running. Till now, many programmers, they are less independent to a particular type of computer and also require a translator that can convert high level language to machine language. The translator may be an interpreter and computer that helps to convert binary code for a computer understand. There are some advantages and disadvantages of high level language. First advantage, high level language are user friendly. Then the second advantages, they are similar to English and use English vocabulary, well-known symbols. Then third advantages, they are too easy to learn, maintain, are problem oriented rather than the machine based. Then next advantages, a programming written in a high level language can be translated into a machine language and can be run by a computer for which there exists an appropriate translator. Then fourth advantages, the language is independent of the machine on which is used that the program developed in a high level language can be run by another language. Some disadvantages, the first disadvantages of high level language, a high level language has to be translated into the machine language by a translator which take up time. Then second, the object code generated by a translator might be the insufficient compared to an equivalent assembly program. There are some disadvantages of high level language. The next point of this syllabus, of this topic, what is source code? First of all, source code. A source code and really refer to before and after versions of a different computer programs that have been compiled before. It can be fail on the computers. Source code subsists of different programming statement created by programmers using using source code is a human readable text written in a specific program language. The goal of for the computer that can be translated into the machine language. As a result, source code are foundation of programs and websites. This is called the source code. And then next point, what are the object codes? The object code is the machine executable file having instructions. For a machine in the form of binary digits generated by the compiler, first of all, object code is the output of the compiler, is a binary file having instructions that we are given by the programmer in source code, and these instructions are encoded in a binary digits. Then object code is a machine readable or machine executable code, but not a human readable. Object code is generated through a process called a compilation and carried out by a computer convert source code into a machine executable. Object code is produced when an interpreter or a computer translate source. Object code is a set of instructions codes, and that is understood by a computer at the lowest hardware level. Object code is usually produced by a compiler, and that reads some higher level computer languages, source instructions, translates, and then into a equivalent machine language instructions. Then next point, OP code. The OP code is a number of interpreted by a computer machine is a virtual or silicon. The represent that the operation to perform. The OP code is a part of an instruction word, and that is interpreted by a processor or representing operation to perform, such as read and write, jump, add. Many instructions will also have operands and effect how the instruction performs, such as saying from where in memory to read or write, or where to jump to so. So the instructions are the 32 bits in size of, for example, a processor may use 8 bits for the OP code and 12 bits for each of the two operands. A step up from the toggling switches. Code might be entered into a machine using perform, called a monitor. The programmer would use a simple commands to say what the memory they have want to modify and enter a machine code numerically. For example, the base of 16 16 digits and using 0 to 9 and use of A, B, C, D, E and F, there are the 16 hexadecimal digits called as OP code. And the next point, byte code. A byte code is similar to OP code. Byte code program code that has been compiled from a source code into the low level code designed for a software interpreter. It may be executed by a virtual machine such as a Java machine, and for future compiled into machine code, which is recognized by the processor. The different type of byte code use a different syntax, which can be read and executed by compounding virtual machine. A popular example in Java bytecode, which is compiled from Java source code and can be run on a Java virtual machine called as JVM. That is called bytecode. Then next point, what is a language processor? A language processor, assembly language, is a machine dependent, yet that are being used to represent instructions in it are not directly understandable by machine. And high level language is a machine independent. A computer understands in machine code that is from 0 and 1. These are the binary number. And it is a tedious task to write a computer program. Directly in machine code, the programs are written mostly in high level language like Java, C++, Python. These are the high level language called as a source code. And this source code cannot be executed directly by computer and must be converted into the machine language. To be execute, hence a special translator system software is used to translate the program written in high level language into the machine code called as language processor. And the program, after translated into a machine code, this is the object program and object code. There are the types of language translator. First is a assembler, then compiler and interpreter. What a translator? A program written in a high level language is called as a source code, and to convert the source code into a machine code, and then the translator are needed. The mostly general term for a software code converting tool is called as a translator. A translator in a software programming terms is a generic terms. It could refer to a compiler, assembler, or interpreter, anything that convert higher level language code to another high level language. For example, basic C++, Java, Fortran, or low level language that the processor can be understand, such as assembly language or machine code. There are some types. First is a compiler. Compilers convert high level language code to machine object code is the one session, and compilers can take a while because they have to translate high level code to lower level machine language all at once, and then save executable object code to memory. A compiler creates machine code that runs on a processor. What is a specific instruction set architecture, and which is processor dependent. Compilers are also platform dependent. That is, compiler can convert C++, for example, to machine code, and that targeted to a platform that is running the Linux operating system, and a cross compiler, however, can generate a code for a platform other than one it runs itself. That is called the compilers, and compiler convert to the language. Then next, interpreters. An interpreter is a computer program that directly executes it. For example, performs instructions written in a programming or scripting language. An interpreter translates high-level instructions into a intermediate form, which is then executed. Translator one line of the program into the binary code at a time, and then interpreting can be done different ways depending on the setting, how much time is available, how many languages are used, whether or not technology is available. There are called as an interpreter. And then another way to get a code. Your processor is user interpreter, and which is not same as a compiler and interpreter and translator code, like a compiler reads code immediately, execute, that is the interpreter. Then the difference between the compiler and interpreter. For the basic comparison, first is the input. Then compiler, it takes an entire program at a time. And interpreter, it takes a signal line of code or instructions at a time. Then second base of comparison is output. Then compiler, it generates intermediate object code, and interpreter, it does not produce any intermediate object code. Then third base is a working mechanism. The compilation is done before execution, and then the interpreter working mechanism is the compilation and execution take a place of simultaneously. There are some differences of compiler and interpreter, and the next base of comparison is the speed. Compiler speed is comparatively faster, and interpreter speed slower. Then next base of comparison is memory. Memory requirement is more due to the creation of object code, and it requires is less memory, as does not create intermediate object code. Then next, the comparison base is errors. Display all errors, some compilation in all same time, and then next, the interpreter display the errors of each line one by one. There are some differences of compiler and interpreter. The next point of this syllabus is assembler. An assembler is a type of computer program that interprets software program and written in assembly language into a machine language code and instructions that can be executed by a computer. An assembler enables software and application developers to access and operate and manage a computer hardware architecture or components. Assembler is sometimes referred to as a compiler and assembly language. It is also provide the service of an interpreter. Assembler translate a program and assembly language into a machine language and effectively to a compiler for the assembly language. But also it is used interactively like an interpreter. Assembly language is a low-level programming language, and low-level programming language are less like a human language, and it is most different to understand at a glance. This is called assemblers. Thank you.